What's going on, squad? It's another wonderful day here at A Brodacious Life. Of course, my name is Jonathan. I've got the famous Dr. J with me here today. What's going on, Dr. J?
Oh, I am not Dr. J today. Today, I am but a servant of Yo Daddy the Grill.
Oh my goodness. Today is the day we have the official Yo Daddy Grill conversation.
Yo
We're going to learn
Daddy.
all about Yo Daddy Grill and have fun talking about grilling because it's football season, man. It's my favorite time of the year. Yesterday watched just an absolute stellar game of Tennessee versus Bama. That was one of the best football games I've ever seen. Just absolutely enjoyed it. And it's just grilling season, man. I'm just having fun. We grilled out today, and I know Dr. J slapped some stuff on the grill today too. So let's talk about it, man. Dr. J, what did you grill today, man?
Well, today was my day of mourning because you watched football yesterday, but I did not watch football yesterday. I watched my Braves in their season yesterday. So
Yeah, there was
I
that. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you put it out
I'm
there,
in mourning a little bit. But you know what? The Phillies played a great game and they straight up deserved to win it. There's no smack talk for me. The Phillies just when it came down to it, they put a hurting on the Braves. I mean, so for our Philadelphia Philly fans out there, ring the bell. And I'm hoping, I want to know that if we got knocked out, we got knocked out by the World Series champion. So for the rest of this, I'm pulling for
yeah.
the Phillies. And also, the Dodgers got knocked out too. How about that, Freddie Freeman? You traded teams and you only stayed in the series 4 more hours. Take
Yes.
that.
Yeah, now I just need the Yankees to get knocked out, and then I'll just be on cloud nine.
That's right. I'm pulling for the Phillies at this point. So
Yeah, I
you
am
know.
too. I am too. Well,
So
awesome,
yeah,
man. So what'd you put on the grill today?
today I did both beef and pork spare ribs. Started with the beef spare ribs, and
Now,
then I
now
and
tell us about your setup because when we say on the grill, my version of on the grill is very different than your on the grill. So tell
so
us about the grill setup and what you got going on.
and I will tell you if you on Instagram, if you go to Yo Daddy the Grill, you actually can see my whole setup. That's Yo Daddy the Grill. That's my cousin that lives at my house with me. He stays on my back porch. So anyways, I use a large big green egg. And so it's like, I think they call it a kimono style cook surface, porcelain kind of cooking area. I use wood charcoal, only natural wood charcoal. I don't use anything with any sawdust or any preservatives. And even down to when I light it with, I get it from, now I can't think of where I get it from. But anyways, I get this special Fogo. I use the Fogo lighters. So even how I light that, there's like nothing in it that's any chemicals or whatever. That's important to me. So, but that's my setup. I've got a table over it, but at the end of the day, it is a big green egg and it's not flashy, but I'll make the best barbecue smoked meats you've ever had in your entire life. I will say charcoal before we get in to this. Charcoal matters. And so maybe we'll talk about that in a second. I'll pause. I don't know if you want me to go that far. You asked me about setup. So I'm
No,
gonna
let's
pause.
let's
That's my
let's deep
setup.
dive into what you got going on today. Because
All right.
I saw the pictures and it had me hungry.
Look, man, it is good. I'm not gonna lie. Today was just epic, awesome. I have a famous chef brother. His name is Chef Jonathan, and makes the best steak you've ever had. But he taught me something a long time ago, and we've talked about this on the show before. One of the things that you taught me is that less is best. So
Yeah,
when we start talking about seasoning it and all, I spend less time worrying about what I put on my meat. I don't think that is much important as is important as getting the right bark, the right texture, the right kind of
exactly.
smoke. We can talk about wood. And a part of that is using the right charcoal. I would argue that charcoal is more important than anything you're going to put on top of the meat. So for me, I use one single brand. I think it is the best brand. I think everything else pales in comparison. I use Fogo yellow bag super premium lump charcoal. I just like it. I think it's the best. I think it adds flavor and it's big chunks. And you can cook a good, I mean, you can cook a good 10 hours with just one green egg full of the super premium lump charcoal from Fogo. By the way, you don't just have to get it from fogo.com. You actually can get it from Academy Sports now too. So,
Nice.
what kind of charcoal do you use?
So I am a traditionalist. I don't use charcoal. I am big on wood burning. I am old school. I like old. We only use now. Most of Mississippi uses pecan wood because that's something that's in abundance here. But we're actually kind of in a rare strip where we actually get what many people call Texas post oak, which is a very dense dry wood. It makes some of the best barbecue in the world comes out of Texas using post oak. Shout out to Franklin's Barbecue who kind of taught me that. So I have a cord of Texas post oak, and that's what I used. And I don't have a traditional smoker at the moment. When we made our move a year and or so back, I had to make the unfortunate choice. I had literally everything on my truck. It was like the Mayflower leaving England to come to America. Literally everything was on that truck except my smoker.
Oh
And
no,
my
I knew
wife
that's a
was
kid.
not happy with the idea of the smoker being thumped around in the back of that truck with all
I'd
that
left my
ash and
wife.
stuff with her
She,
clothes.
she'd still been back. She'd been home. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, sweetheart. If you're listening to this, I love you.
So now I grill a lot on I got it from Academy. So it's funny that you mentioned Academy, but it's it's actually a kind of like a fire pit, but it's got cooking grates over it. It's got a second layer over it that it can add another layer. And then we got different things we can hang pots and stuff from. I'm a cast iron connoisseur. So I have plenty of cast irons that I can kind of dangle things over and cook over the top of it. So I'm kind of weird. I even when I get my smoker because my birthday's around the corner, and I might just have to get a birthday present for myself if I don't get it.
I won't tell a soul. No one has to know.
And so we're going to I'll definitely be getting a smoker, but for me and what I like to do, and also keep in mind, I have a super huge family. There's 8 of us, and I've always got my mother-in-law here, which makes 9. There's people always kind of in and out. My kids are at that age where they have friends, and one of their friends also has like 5 kids in their family. So there's always a huge amount of people over here. I really like the green eggs. The green eggs have always been an envy of my eye, but it would probably take 2 green eggs at least just to feed my base family, not to mention the extras that I've always got roaming around our house.
Now, I will say they make a big green egg extra, extra, extra large,
Oh gosh.
but you don't even want to know how much that booger costs.
I bet that, I bet you
I
that
want
thing is
one
like,
just to say I had it, but
I think it's got to be $3,000 or $4,000.
yeah, go up some.
I love those big green eggs though.
So I'm gonna
I've
give you
worked on
another
the
secret of what I use, and I'd be curious to see what you think. In fact, as I'm talking to you, I've got 2 entire racks of barbecue or 2 entire racks of pork spare ribs on my big green egg right now. So, in fact, I'm sniffing a bunch because I've been out around that wood. But
yeah.
look, so we talked about the charcoal, and I'm like you. In case folks don't know, when I say super premium lump charcoal, that's wood charcoal, like not that match light stuff that's burn up sawdust. But the next thing that I drop into mine, and this is after, so I like to get the grill hot. And when I say I cook low and slow, my
Like
magic cooking,
sweet loving.
like sweet loving. My magical cooking temperature for me is right at 250. So it'll stay between 250, 270, right in that mark. And then once I get it up to temperature, I put in some smoking wood in addition to my Fogo Premium. And I use 2 different kinds depending on what I'm after.
Okay.
If I'm wanting something with a little bit more of a sweet taste, man, I like good old fashioned pecan wood. I love the smell. I love the way it burns. I love everything. It gives it a little bit of a sweeter kind of flavor to it. I love some pecan wood. And then my second kind, if I'm wanting something with just maybe, I don't want to use the word bitter, but with just a little bit more kick to it, I use the barrel proof brand bourbon barrel blocks, where
Okay.
they've
Yeah.
had Kentucky whiskey and those
Yeah.
bourbon barrels. And so you can actually buy the blocks from that. And yeah, that's what I use. While I'm talking to you, I'm actually looking to see if I can find them on Amazon to get our friends a link.
The big thing is for those who are not smoking a whole bunch, you don't want to just go and just pick up some wood that's in your yard. Different woods smoke differently. You definitely want to avoid fruit trees is a very, very big one. You also want to avoid things that have sap. So things like cypress and pine
Mm.
wood would be absolutely disgusting. I've had friends, go over and they're grilling out, they're hanging out. Maybe they got the fire pit going. They want to grill some steaks on it and they go to grill and it's like licking pine tar. It's probably the worst steak I've ever had in my life. It's that moment if you just kind of smile and maybe you didn't ask enough questions when you first got there and saw the wood. It didn't dawn on you what that wood was. If you grill on pine wood, you're going to know in the first bite that that's pine wood. You are literally going to taste that sap.
Yeah, no joke, man. What you said. I mean, it's important to have the right wood at the right time and at the right temperature. You don't want to scald the stuff either. What temperature when you get your grill and you heat it up? What temperatures are you putting your stuff at?
So for smoking, I'm looking at down around the 225 to 250 range,
Hmm.
but it kind of depends on my cut of meat. If I'm working with ribs, I might go a little bit hotter than I would say a pork butt,
Hmm.
or because I'm looking to develop that bark a little bit differently. Like chicken wings, I might smoke chicken wings in that 275 to 300 range. Might do it a little bit faster just because those wings, I don't want them getting too smoky. Being that small, they'll really take in that smoke. So it really just kind of depends on what I'm going after. And then like brisket, I'll do low and slow because I always fear I'm going to overcook it. So I really want to break down that fat nice, low and slow, and I'll season it up, get it on there, and then I'll put it at 250 for like almost 8 to 10 hours, or whenever I see that connective tissue breaking down. And that'll let me know from there. I either need to wrap it, finish it in the oven, or I might just wrap it up and then I'm going to put it in my cooler and then I can let it rest there for another 8 hours because it's going to continue to cook in that wrapping. People forget that food carryover cooks. People will pull chicken at 165. Well, by the time you pull a whole chicken at 165 and you let it rest, it's actually going to go to about 174, 175, and that chicken's actually going to be overcooked. You're actually wanting to pull that chicken around 160, knowing that it's going to carry overcooked to 165.
Yeah, no, seriously. So my chicken temps, I like to when I'm cooking a chicken. When I cook a chicken, I cook it to about 175. Is that what you said? 175 too?
Well, you're typically for chicken to be cooked, you got to get it to 165.
I cook
I
mine to
normally pull around
175.
160. Yeah, I normally pull around 160.
I guess I'm just weird. I like a well cooked
Well, I
chicken.
mean, a lot of people get weirded out with chicken. Chicken's that weird protein that, they might open it up, especially when it's smoked. It's going to still be a little pink on the inside, and that kind of
Right.
freaks people out. And especially with, a wife that's pregnant, that might not fly over so well. With my wife, that doesn't always fly over so well, but she'll get the upper breast meat. But I like to take mine out around 160 to 165. And again, it's going to carry over cook.
Well, what is your so I like to back to like when I'm cooking a brisket or when I'm cooking pork shoulder or even when I'm cooking ribs, I like to cook it to about probably about 185. Take it off
Yeah.
the grill, wrap it up in tin foil. That's my point. I'll pull it up, wrap it up in tin foil, or sometimes butcher's paper too.
Yeah.
And then I'll sit it on the grill until it gets to 205.
Yep.
And then here's the key. And again, the key the chef taught me. You taught me so much. I don't like to admit it, but I just throw it out there.
Try to
Guys, you
impart
got to
some
let
wisdom.
your food rest. I got a
Yeah,
cooler.
man.
It has one purpose, and that is that. And then I take that stuff out. When I take it out, I even leave it wrapped up and I put it inside this cooler. I literally go drop it in the cooler. Then I put towels on top of it for more insulation. And then, man, I let it sit in there for about 45 minutes.
Yeah. Just let it hang out, let it rest, let it chill. You know, People go into it too soon. I mean, the brisket we had the last time I was over there in Georgia, I let that thing rest for a solid 45 minutes to an hour. And that was just kind of up on the counter. Again, I kind of kept it wrapped up. I didn't want it to completely dry out, but I just let it chill, just let it sit. And I like to do a couple extra things when I'm before. Do you do anything when you go to wrap yours?
No, what are you about to say? I'm interested in this.
So when I go to wrap, especially when I'm doing like brisket or maybe doing pork,
Oh, you said when you're rapping. Sorry.
when I'm rap, when I rap, I
When I
bring the
rap.
beats. Bow, bow, bow. So when I bring the wrap, I like to, when I'm trimming my meats and stuff in the very beginning, I'll often will take some of that and I'm going to put it in a cast iron. And I've actually got that working in there, smoking and reducing down. So whenever I go to wrap, I'm going to take that same fat that I've rendered and smoked, and I'm going to pour that back over the top of that while I wrap it.
Mm.
So what happens is as your proteins are kind of resting, it's going to have a moment of where it kind of slows down, and then it actually kind of sucks in like a sponge on that fat. And you might say, ew, that's gross. I'm trying to live healthy. But all of these meats, they actually, especially the meats that you smoke, they're very tough meats. They're very sinuous. They've got lots of connective tissues. What actually the flavor is in these meats is the fat. So without that fat, you really lack the proper flavor that you're looking for in these smoked meats. You really need that fat. So having that fat poured back over on top of it, maybe you just kind of baste it at some point, that's just a great way to make sure that that's going to stay juicy for the whole time.
Do you use a any type of special thermometer?
Now, I'm weird in that I know there's lots of great technology out there. I know you're probably going to be able to recommend some cool product.
I am. I'm checking my apps right to make sure I say the right name. I got one
Oh
that I use
man.
constantly.
So for me, I just, because I'm a chef, I get it. This is one of those things that I'm weird about. I'm like that even in the kitchen. I don't use thermometers to test steaks in my kitchen. I'm by touch. I have to touch things. And that's kind of how I am, the same way when I'm smoking meats. I'm not looking necessarily for a temperature every time. I'm looking for what's the texture of it. How is the connective tissue? When I squeeze a little bit, is the fat kind of pulling off of it? Is the fat rendered properly? Do I have the proper bark on it? That's kind of more of what I'm leaning to. The temperature is obviously super important, but I read that temperature by touch and feel, where others might have like that super scientific, like the barbecue scientist on YouTube. I love his channel because he literally is. He's so scientific about what temperature he's going to pull, and he's got it down to a pure scientific method, which I love. But me, I just worked in kitchens where I worked in a couple of kitchens where we didn't even have recipes. You just worked beside the executive chef, and it was all by touch and feel and taste. And you weren't on your own until you did it right to their standard. And then once you nailed it, you nailed it. You did it that way every single time. It was kind of that way for me with smoked meats. I'm looking for a temperature, texture. I might give a little, a little taste on the tip of the finger to let me know that I'm on the right page. Sorry for anyone who gets worried about sanitation at my house, but that's kind of how I'm checking my meats. So
Yes.
what are you using?
So, and I just put if you go to abrodaciouslife.com/resources, and you probably don't know this chef because while we've been making the episode, people who are watching on YouTube are like, what in the world is he doing? I just put this stuff up on our resource page so anyone can see it because it's totally cool. And these are the exact things that I actually use because I'm not fancy. I'm not super. You can get it all on Amazon. So I use what's called a Meter Plus, and it's this thing that you basically can punch it inside of, like when I'm smoking a pork shoulder. I push it inside and then I open up the app on my phone and I set the parameters. I tell it what kind of meat it is. And so it will actually give a graph and it'll track the cook of the meat. It'll tell me when it hits the stall. It tells me the internal temperature of the grill, the internal temperature of the meat, and then it'll send me alarm. Boom, 10 minutes till you pull off. Boom, 10 minutes until done. And then when I get in there, rest it, it'll even tell me the rest. So it just sends me a text to my phone. So for people like me who live in the city and I don't have your Jedi powers where I just touch meat and go, home, it is done. Like that don't work for me. So, but this little thing called a meter, you just punch it in the meat and then you set it up, the cook on your phone. and it will text you when it's done. Like I leave, I close. This is how, and I will say this is how I get such great smoke. Something our dad taught me, and I know you've heard him say this before. Shout out to my dad if he's listening. We were
Yeah.
growing up, and I used to say, "Dad, let me open it up and see it." And he goes, "No, that messes it up. Don't take away the smoke.
Yeah.
You got to leave it in. You low and slow. Don't you open the second you open the top, the flavor is gone."
It's true.
So with this meter, I think
Which
about my
my
dad
dad
every time.
probably has my favorite smoker.
Look, yeah, that old school one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you
That
know what? You punch that meter thing in there, it'll
Yeah.
send me a text when that meat's done. I don't have to go out there and look. And so my meat stays in that smoker till the last second, collecting all of that. And the actual meter like thermometer, I mean, it's 99 bucks, but you can get it off Amazon. Again, there's a link on our resources page. And I also, already spoke about the bourbon barrel chunks and then the Fogo super premium charcoal. I put a link on there too. And that's the exact things that I use. Like no joke.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I get really into smoking. I get into really doing it the old way. One of the things that I've always wanted to do was to build my own smoker. And by doing it the old way of like making like this cast iron, using a cast iron oven basically that's on the ground, and then basically using that over to a wood box, if you will, that's lined with fireproofing, so you can just build racks and smoke in there. I really like that kind of old school vibe. That's kind of just always been my jam, if you will. And which hold on, Josh, I forgot to do something before we get rolling. I forgot to do something. Can
What'd you
we just
forget?
take a minute? Because I just looked up and saw myself in the thing up there. Can I just take a minute?
Take a minute.
Oh, can I just give a shout out to P&W Bushcraft? This hoodie got me looking so fly. So if you're out
Yes.
there,
We
you're in
love some
the
P&W bushcraft.
if you're ever out there, you're in the woods, you're doing like what I'm talking about, you're working with your hands, you're going camping, you're doing stuff. They don't sponsor me. I bought this with my own money. P&W Bushcraft, they did an episode several months back. Just awesome. I just saw myself up in the thing. I was like, oh my God, I love this hoodie. Shout out to P&W Bushcraft. But I like that old school smoker experience of, you got to get that fire going and you're kind of developing it. And a great tool to watch if you've ever have a chance is I like Barbecue Scientist, probably one of my favorite YouTube pages. There's also a masterclass. I know a lot of people kind of iffy on the masterclass app because it is so incredibly expensive. It's my least favorite one to renew because it's like $160 when you renew it for the year. And I really only watch like 4 or 5 classes for the year. So I'm not really getting my money's worth out of it. But Masterclass has a class from Aaron Franklin from Franklin's Barbecue in Austin, Texas. By far the best barbecue class you will ever take. It's worth the $160 if you pair it with like one other master class that you really want to watch. To me, it was worth $80 any day, all day. I loved his master class, but it broke things down on a touch, feel, and a scientific level. And it really just kind of broke things down for me on why this reacts this way. And he does chicken, pulled pork, did sausages, vegetables, of course, ribs, brisket. He went through every single like piece of meat that you would want to smoke this weekend. And it was really cool. Do you have any resources that you like?
So I really like the Fogo channel on Instagram. Obviously I use Fogo super premium charcoal, but the Fogo channel has all kinds of recipes and stuff, and it's good for when you're getting started. I started listening to it, and I would highly suggest if you've never smoked anything, start with a barbecue or not a barbecue, but start with a smoked pork shoulder because it's the easiest thing to get in the game
Yeah.
in. And that guy breaks it down step by step. And speaking of that too, we were talking about our grills. The Big Green Egg is very expensive. I think it's the best on the market. I swear by it. I live by it. If you go to Instagram, Yo Daddy the Grill, you can see that I use it. And by the way, all the stuff that we talk about, you can actually see me cooking with it. So we're not making this stuff up. But I know of an off-brand one that I don't know if you've heard of, and I just put a link to it on our website. That's about half the cost. Not well, maybe not half, but a third less. It's called Komodo Joe. Have you heard of Komodo Joe?
Yes. So I've had
And
a
I think it's a
lot of
pretty
people
good
tell me.
grill.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people tell me, oh, it's the same, nearly the same thing. It's kind of like having, it's kind of like, how do you say it? It's kind of like having an iPhone 14 versus the Google, or sorry, the Samsung Galaxy. I was about to say Google, but Samsung Galaxy. They're both really good products that are out there, and they're both premium. One has different benefits than the other one. So it's just kind of a trade-off between, some of the different things, what can do what. I think Green Egg has just done just a little bit more as far as diversifying what you can do with that green egg versus a Komodo Joe, at least in what I've seen. Because Green Egg's got everything from, pizza inserts to, I mean, they've got so much that you can add on to those things. I've even seen like rotisserie style stuff that
Oh
can go
yeah,
in
yeah.
there.
I've got a pizza stone. That's a whole separate episode, but man. In fact, my son Nathan was texting me a second ago. He goes, "Dad, can we make barbecue pizzas this week? Because that's I mean, it's just easy and it's awesome. Yeah, pizza stone. I know that's getting a sidetrack, but yeah. Oh, I thought of something else that's worth mentioning. Because I'm curious. Again, can we talk about what the rub, our favorite rub?
Yes. So again, I believe less is more, and I keep it very simple. So I have 3 ingredients in my rub, and that's really it. So it is 25. I do it by ratio. So 25% is seasoned salt, like Lowry's, 25% is kosher salt, and the other 50% is fresh cracked black pepper. And that's all that I use. Depending on the meat, I might, if I'm feeling kind of frisky, I might put maybe a little, like a thin smear of like Dijon, maybe to help it crust on there. But that's super rare. Like the brisket that I made you was straight up that rub. I didn't put anything else to add as a, as something to help stick it on there. I'll just live just straight up seasoning, and then I let that sit for 24 hours. Then I set it out at room temperature, and then from room temperature, we put it from there onto the smoker.
Interesting. I'm not quite that good. I'm not that level, but I'll tell you, I still use a rub. So first off, I think the binding agent matters.
Yeah.
And I know you may disagree with me on this because most people that have tons of experience seem to disagree with me, but I don't care. They're all wrong. I know that
All right. What you got?
you can bind, and for those of you that are grill novices, you don't just put the stuff on top of the meat. It has to have a binding agent because if you don't, basically it's gonna like slip off the second you flip the meat, depending on what kind of meat you're cooking. So you bind it on there with something sticky. A lot of people are using mayonnaise, and I think that that is gross. It has an aftertaste,
I
and I
was going to say the
cannot
same
stand it.
thing. Josh, if you say mayonnaise, I'm going to lose my mind.
No, 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 no. So let me tell you what you need. Yellow mustard.
Yeah.
Mustard is the way to go. You won't taste it, but you just take your meat after it's hit room temperature. I like to let my meat cold or, warm up from the refrigerator, I should say, to room temperature. And then I use some mustard. I put the mustard on top, get my hands dirty, and then the brand of rub that I put on it is called Meat Church. I love
Okay.
Meat Church, and there's all kinds of different kinds of Meat Church. There's one though that's called Gospel Barbecue. I like Gospel Barbecue Meat Church. There's a link to it. I just put up there for anyone that's curious. You can get it right off Amazon. But Meat Church, man, once I get that um, mustard spread across it, I just Meat Church. Then I rub it in, and then I'll put some more Meat Church on it, and that's it. Now, I will say we talked about chicken. I do not use this. Don't use mustard with a whole chicken. You spray chicken with duck fat.
There you go. There you go.
That's right. I know.
Anything
I
with
see.
duck
I know
fat.
a thing or two. I listen to you when you talk to me.
Do you treat your meat in any different way while it's in the grill? Like, or while it's in the smoker?
What do you mean?
So for a lot of different barbecue, if it's just sitting straight up on the grate, I'm not having it wrapped or anything to keep it from burning or anything like that. I'll spritz it with beer, an equal parts beer and apple cider vinegar mix. And what that does is it helps build that bark up a little bit.
So I've done that before, but my experience is that I don't have to. So with the big green egg, I use what's called a convector, which is like a plate that makes it so it's not cooking on direct heat.
Right.
So the convector's in there, then up above that is the grate. So usually I just sit my stuff in there and I don't have any issues. Now, I will say my wife, who's currently pregnant and doesn't eat anything smoked because my baby has decided right now that my baby doesn't like smoked food. So she smells it, she's out, she's done, which he's going to have to learn. When the baby comes out and he's old enough, he's going to have to figure out his life. Dad's going to teach him. But anyways, back to what I was saying. But so when she was eating it, I would get a little tray that I would sit on top of the convector under the meat on top of the convector, and I would do 3 parts apple cider vinegar, 1 part water,
Okay.
and it would cook up in it would cook up in
Okay.
to the meat. That's what I did.
Because I know some people put like a pan of water or, a little drop of apple cider vinegar at the very bottom if they have like the stack smokers. I know Dad used to do that, or he'd put just a straight up pan of water down there. I just find that, how you're going to create moisture in there. I use it more as a, just kind of keep that top layer moist, especially like the very ends. Like if you have that end of the brisket that maybe it sits closer to the fire itself, or it's too close to the edge, it risks burning. There's just that kind of helps keep it from burning. And again, just kind of builds bark. What are ingredients that you don't want on your barbecue?
Okay.
There is
So
one,
we
I know
have
for sure we got to talk about one thing for the novice barbecuer.
look, there's a lot of stuff actually. A couple things on this. I'll give my top 2. How do I say this without making a family member upset? I know some of you out there, and we're both related to a person, that their sole lot in life when they barbecue is to see how much strange they literally dump an entire spice rack on whatever they're cooking to get some strange new flavor.
Yes.
And I don't know how to tell you. So my first thing is, and I learned this from you, less is best, because the idea, the ultimate grill master grill is that, and Chef Gordon Ramsay would say this, that is that the meat itself has to be the main hero. I'm here to eat smoked meat. So that if I add anything to it, it has to elevate the meat itself, not become the flavor. And if you put so much stuff on it, at that point, you're not tasting the smoked meat, you're tasting the seasoning. You haven't
Exactly.
elevated anything. So
Exactly.
that's my first one. And then my second one is always remember that anything that has a high sugar content like barbecue, it burns. And so if you're going to put a barbecue sauce on it, like brush it on towards the end, you want to use a vinegar-based barbecue sauce at first. And then like I like Sweet Baby Ray's. I know that's like the cheap poor man's barbecue sauce, but I love Sweet Baby Ray's.
Ain't
But
nothing wrong
because
with
it's
sweet
high in
baby.
brown sugar, I won't put it on till the very end, because brown sugar, it'll caramelize too fast and burn if you put it on at the beginning of the smoke.
Josh, I'm just so impressed, man. You really
Dude,
hit my top 2. I was
I'm
like,
getting
that's
better.
my boy. That's my boy. Man, Josh, you are the grill master flex, man.
Look,
I need to get into having, one of the things I want to do is, I want to get into learning more about these other rubs and stuff that are out there. I always laugh because you go in there and it's like big butt rub, or,
I mean, I
mama's
like a big
mama's
butt rub,
butt.
just not with
Yeah.
my grill.
I mean, I'm always fascinated by the labels that are on these things to get you to buy one of those little containers. And I've had some in the past that are just absolutely fantastic. I'm a simplist. I like to taste the meat. I am all that is carnivore. And when I mean that, I don't mean that I just like the flavor of all the other stuff textured by some meat. I want to taste meat. Like so today on our grill, now I didn't smoke. I actually just straight up grilled. We did sirloin kebabs with pineapple,
Mm.
onions, and we put them in a pineapple soy marinade. And then I glazed them with like this mix of some of the other glaze that are the marinade that didn't go onto the meat, the raw meat. I put it over to the side, put a whole thing of like General Tso's sauce on top of it, mix that up. because it's got this, because in that soy marinade, it's like sugar, there's pineapple juice, there's soy sauce, ginger, garlic, and apple cider vinegar. And I let that sit for 48 hours. Um, and yeah, it just kind of, that was just a nice way to glaze that meat. It was just so good. I didn't have the best cut of meat in all hindsight. Sirloin was not the best cut for that task, but it was still delicious, and the marinade helped it stay tender.
Hey, you just reminded me of something too. This is kind of off subject. There's another rub that I've used a lot too, called Meat Mitch, like
Yeah.
Meat Mitch, not meat B word, but Meat Mitch. I'm gonna put a link on our resources page too, because I've used that. I actually like that better with my barbecue, or I keep saying barbecue, but smoked pork shoulder.
Okay.
It's a pretty good one. Not too much, not too much.
So before we head out, what is your favorite thing right now? It's your last meal. You can only get to smoke one item. What's that smoked item going to be?
So I'll tell you what it is, and unfortunately, it's not something I get a lot of right now because the costs are too high. You know what I'm going to say? Because I said went that far with cost.
What's that? It's got to be beef.
Yeah, yeah. I my favorite thing that to make right now that I just don't do often because of cost is beef brisket.
Okay. Yeah.
I think beef brisket is like ridiculous, but I haven't done one. Probably, if you're on my Instagram page, you'll notice I haven't done a brisket probably in 2 or 3 months because the cost here in Atlanta on brisket
Yeah.
is
I went to go get one
extremely high.
yesterday.
So I rotate a lot. Like right now, I'm doing a lot of ribs because they're on discount at the BJ's. But man, somewhere there's a field of a lot of pigs because pork prices here are pretty low. But anyways, beef brisket. What about you? What was your favorite?
So brisket would definitely be on my top one as well. That's one that, a lot of people can't conquer. I can do brisket. I will put my brisket versus anybody out there. I cooked some for Dr. J a couple months ago.
Oh,
And
dude, it was melt in your mouth good.
and it was just, it's just something about that first slice where you just see it. It's so juicy. It had the ring, it had the bark. I really just I got done. I sliced that first slice, no joke. I slapped it. I was like, you a bad boy. You was bad. That meat was so
It's so
good.
funny. You refer to your meat in like the male, but I'm like the opposite. I'm like, who's a good girl? Who's a good girl?
I said, oh,
So
you was bad. You was bad,
that's so funny.
baby. I absolutely love it, man. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us on A Brodacious Life and having a fun conversation about barbecues. It is a fantastic time of year to be out grilling, smoking meats, having fun. It's football season. It's also playoff baseball season, which is one of my favorite times of the year. I love playoff baseball. Unfortunately, our Braves won't be in on it, but excited to see some playoff baseball and down to the World Series there in November. And I am super pumped about it and pumped that you're here. So make sure you hit that like, you hit that subscribe. Make sure you let us know where you're from. Leave us a comment. I don't care. Leave us a review of how you like the episode. Let us know what you're grilling on, what you're smoking on. What's that favorite recipe that you got going on? We're passionate about having you here, and we're excited. We'll see you next time on A Brodacious Life.